welcome to Menopause Rescue. I'm Dr. Polly Watson. Midlife women are often caught up in a sea of symptoms. Too often, they're overwhelmed by the lack of support from mainstream healthcare. They're inundated with so-called experts who are selling solutions which may lack credibility. I'm a Menopause Society certified gynecologist with both traditional and functional medicine training. I'm here to guide you through this transition and help you decipher the facts from the fads. Armed with credible information, I hope you are empowered to rescue and restore your health, making the second half of your life your best. Welcome to Menopause Rescue. I'm your host, Dr. Polly Watson, and today I'm so excited to have Kate Willis, nurse practitioner, with me. We are going to be talking about 5 opportunities that are often missed by a lot of women to optimize their health.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm so excited to join today to talk about these opportunities that women can take to improve their health.
So we're going to start off with optimizing protein. And I think it's really hard to optimize what you don't know. So we want to be mindful and respectful for everybody's kind of bandwidth with counting everything all the time. But I think there can be a happy medium to being able to eyeball 4 ounces of chicken and knowing that's about 30 grams of protein. If you're going for non-animal sources, a cup of tempeh is roughly 31 grams of protein. And we have handouts that we can attach to this episode to just give you some really quick and dirties. But 100 grams of protein a day is a really great place to start. Generally, we're trying to encourage people who are trying to put on muscle mass, which as we age, we're all losing muscle. So that should be one of our priorities. We want about a gram per pound of ideal body weight. So if you're 5 feet tall, that's 100 pounds for the first 5 feet, and then 5 pounds for each inch over that. So if you weigh 110, Lord knows, I haven't been at my ideal body weight for a long time. So let's just let that go for a minute. But in terms of counting grams of protein, if I'm 5'2", I would need 110 grams of protein. And so when women come in and they're like, yeah, I have oatmeal for breakfast. And I'm like, well, you're getting some fiber a little bit. That's great. Where's your protein? And they're like, well, I put a few nuts on top. I'm like, well, nuts are mostly fat. Where's your protein? They don't really know. Take a look at these handouts and maybe take a little bit of time to try to determine how much protein you need and how much you're getting, because if you're not fueling muscle, you can't build it. So we need protein to fuel muscle.
Absolutely. And we actually utilize protein less efficiently as we get older too. And so for the person who thinks, gosh, I used to eat 40 grams of protein and had great muscle, a lot of things change. And one of those things that changes is how we are able to utilize protein to be able to build muscle. And so it's important to, especially as we age, to be keeping that parameter of really wanting quality protein and the right amount.
Right. And a lot of us really care about our bones as we age, and you want to think about your muscles as this exoskeleton to support bones. So, maybe you don't want a beach body, and that's cool. I don't need you to have one, but we all need to have a strong skeleton. So
absolutely. Another opportunity for us to really take at any age is optimizing sleep. So sleep is one of those things where most of us know we probably need a certain amount, but really prioritizing that falls to the wayside when we have a busy schedule, maybe things are going on with teenage kids, a lot's going on at work. But the truth is that sleep really is important. When we don't sleep well, we tend to have worse insulin sensitivity the next day. So if we're having more elevated blood sugars, more inflammation. One of the things we also see going on as we enter perimenopause and the menopause transition and beyond is an increased risk for sleep apnea. So sometimes I'll have patients that come in and they say, I'm doing all the right things. I'm putting away my phone at night. I'm in bed for 8 hours and I just still feel exhausted when I wake up. This is one of the things that I'm thinking about evaluating potentially for sleep apnea. And then sleep hygiene is really important. Again, it may not be enough if something else is going on, but making sure you are getting some daytime sunlight, especially that morning sunlight to set your circadian rhythm, and then avoiding blue light at night, or if you do have to be on a screen for some reason, using blue light blocking glasses. The really obnoxiously orange blue light blocking glasses are best. But those are some important things to keep in mind, and then as we have hormones changing, low progesterone, low estrogen, that can impact our sleep too. So definitely press into sleep hygiene. And then if you are finding you're doing that and still not having good quality sleep, get some other things like hormones or screening for sleep apnea checked out to see if that is part of the problem of why you're having trouble sleeping.
And so often when we bring this up, I think there are a couple misconceptions about sleep apnea that are just important to drive home. We may have a concept in our head that only people who are really struggling with obesity have sleep apnea, but many smaller petite women have really narrow jaws. And so when they lay back at night, their tongue occludes their airway. So it's not just a problem of people who are struggling with weight. It can be people of all sizes. And Kate introduced me to a company called Snap Diagnostics. So you don't have to go to an overnight sleep lab and, sleep on a rubber mattress in a really sterile setting with people hooking wires on you all night long. You can do a sleep study relatively inexpensively in the comfort of your own home. And you don't always have to wear a CPAP machine. You can work with a dentist that's trained in designing dental devices to help widen your jaw. And so if you don't get sleep quality corrected, everything else won't work, right? Because your cortisol is so high and your insulin's going to be dysregulated, which is going to affect all your other hormones. So I'm really grateful that you helped me find Snap Diagnostics, because a lot of our patients have really benefited from that.
Yeah. Nobody wants to go into a sleep lab to do a sleep study. So it's great to be able to do that at home.
Mm-hmm. The next opportunity is strength training. And I feel like there is a couple of maybe misunderstandings around muscle building in midlife. So a lot of time when women are talking about maybe they do walking, or maybe they do Pilates, or maybe they do bar. And when I say, do you do any heavy resistance training? Are you lifting anything? Are you using bands? Are you doing anything like that? They're like, I don't want to get bulky. Well, we're not. We don't really have enough testosterone to get bulky. And in our practice, when we replace testosterone, we're replacing testosterone to physiologic levels. So we're not going to give you excess amounts of testosterone where you're going to look like Arnold. Okay, so we can just let that go. That's not going to happen. But as we age, like Kate's mentioned, we're losing muscle mass really quickly. It's harder to put on muscle mass as we have less hormones on board. So we really need to be doing strength training to muscle fatigue. So in order to make a muscle bigger, we need to fuel it. We need to have enough protein. We need to have adequate sleep and have enough recovery. But we need to tax that muscle until the muscle is getting really tired. And so I think that if folks aren't familiar, maybe they're not used to lifting anything heavy enough where they're picking up a 5-pound weight and they could do that for 20 minutes. We're really interested in developing a comfort around lifting something heavier so that you can do 6 to 12 reps. And at the end of 6 to 12 reps, you're getting tired and it's getting hard to complete the last 2 reps, so that we really want to start rebuilding that muscle. And anything else you want to add to that?
Well, I think there's this, thought that burn that we feel in our muscle when we use a light weight for a longer period of time, that is muscle fatigue. And that is actually not the same thing as muscle fatigue. So that is definitely taxing our muscle endurance, which is a great thing to be able to build. But fatigue is a different thing. It, again, is being achieved in that shorter number of reps. And it's to the point where you're really struggling with that last bicep curl or last chest press. It doesn't mean that it's falling on your face, but it means that those last few reps feel really tough. I think that's something to keep in mind, is that burn isn't the same thing as muscle fatigue.
And I think another barrier women see around strength training is that maybe they don't know where to start. Maybe they feel really uncomfortable with free weights. I would really emphasize making sure you get correct form on basic movement first. Do you know how to do a proper lunge? Do you know how to do a proper squat? Do you know how to do a proper deadlift? If you don't know what these things are, getting a trainer can be a fantastic investment. I know you use Evlo Fitness. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
It's a fantastic resource. It is not systemically fatiguing, which is another thing I see women doing. If they feel systemically fatigued from a workout, they think they accomplished, muscle building activity. But really the goal with Evlo is to fatigue the muscle without having too much systemic fatigue. If you're really tired and fatigued, it's going to be hard to actually push your body to get to that muscle fatigue. So I like the structure and how curated it is in terms of giving a real clear pathway on what to do each day for rest, for recovery, and for muscle building.
And if you're not familiar, we're not affiliated with Evlo Fitness in any way, but we both have used it in the past. And it's an online weight training program developed by female physical therapists. So one of the things I liked about it was that they kind of put you in positions where you're bypassing a lot of common mistakes people make, right? Mm-hmm. So for instance, in a single leg deadlift, they have you put one hand against the wall, you have another foot on a slider. You're really controlling the motion so that you're much more likely to do the motion correctly in an online setting. So strength training is fantastic. I think if you don't have access to those things, if you subscribe to the New York Times has some really great basic strength training workouts. I think it's like strength training in 12 minutes where they have 3 exercises that you do a minute of each set of 3, and then you have a minute of rest. And then maybe you start with 12 minutes and maybe that's where you're at and that's okay. And then maybe you get stronger and you can do 2 cycles of that. And maybe you work up to 3 cycles of that. So,
yeah. Another opportunity that we see women being able to take is having a stress management plan. So, we see a variety of concerns in our practice, from sort of perimenopause and menopause to women who are also walking through a lot of chronic illnesses. And in all of those states, the nervous system is really, really key to being able to heal and feel good and have healthy hormones, no matter what age you are. There are a lot of different ways to regulate our stress response. And there are some of those big picture things like going to therapy or doing a program like Primal Trust, which is it's like a neural retraining program. You're essentially rewiring the messages that go from your brain to your body, from your body to your brain, about being safe and regulating that stress response. That can be really foundational for healing from chronic illnesses. I think it's also really helpful to have tangible things that we do in the moment when we feel stressed. Things like tapping or vagus nerve exercises. You can do one where you place your finger just above the ridge in your ear and you do a gentle massage, and that activates the vagus nerve. Deep breathing can be great. Those are things that you can do every day to practice and to help regulate, but there are also things that you can do in the moment to really regulate your stress response and to keep yourself out of that fight or flight situation into that parasympathetic rest and digest, relax, socialize, connect state.
And one of the things I love about stress management is that these are things you can do at home that are largely free, right? So I think sometimes in the holistic medicine space, we get really hung up on nutraceuticals or the latest gadget, or, you just need this thing. And by the way, it's $1,200. I have a pulse electronic field mat and it gets hot and it's supposed to be great for muscle recovery. And yes, I love it. But what I think it really does for me is that I have a space where I am in my house and I am quiet and I am doing mindfulness work while I'm on the mat, right? So we want to do stress management just like we brush our teeth. It's a skill we're developing so that when life throws us a curveball, we're more resilient. We can respond to that better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe along the sort of lines of stress management is thinking about honoring our circadian rhythms, which is really challenging in today's world where we're looking at light all the time. We're looking at screens all the time. We're not really paying attention to natural wake and sleep cycles, all of those things. But again, trying to think about simple things that you can do on your own. We can give people hormones, but if you're working 120 hours a week and you're working night shift work, there is no exogenous hormone that we can give you to balance that situation, right? So it's really a partnership and working together with these lifestyle things. And the hormone piece is an important piece, but is certainly not the entire picture. So a lot of times people will think about getting some natural sunlight first thing in the morning versus looking at a screen on the other end of the day, like Kate mentioned, using light blocking glasses. A lot of families will start shutting things down and using candlelight, which is so beautiful, to sort of set the tone. Hey, everybody, we're going to start calming down, maybe even reading a paper book or something where you're not looking at a screen. And setting some limits with work, right? That we're not trying to work online right before we go to bed. Like, of course, you're not going to sleep well when you do that.
Yes. Another way to sort of honor these circadian rhythms is also how we eat. So eating sort of with the sunlight, you're not fasting, eating breakfast in the morning and then eating dinner, before it's too late, if we're eating and then going right to bed. That is not going with our circadian rhythms. And so that's just another way we can pull in supporting our circadian rhythms and honoring them and supporting our hormones through that.
Right. When we're trying to go to sleep with a really full stomach, it interferes with melatonin production. And so it makes it that much harder to go to sleep. Not to mention, a lot of people will have, heartburn and digestive concerns if they eat and then they lay down. So
it's not a recipe for good sleep at all. Yeah. One more area where women can really maximize their health or improve their health is thoughtful hormone sourcing. So we live in an age where you can get just about anything on the internet. You can go to Amazon and order progesterone cream or estrogen cream or get it shipped in from another country. And I really encourage people to, when you're thinking about hormones, do it in the context of a provider who's had education and experience with hormone prescribing. When you get things on the internet without a prescriber, you don't always know, do they have what they say they have in them? Are they going to be effective? Are you essentially wasting your money, or are they going to be giving you more of something than you actually need and putting you in a place of risk? So I think that's important. Your provider is your partner to make sure that you are getting not just a good hormone product, but also the right hormone in the right form for you. And so there are a lot of different ways to do that well. And so this is where individualization really comes into play. There is not a one size fits all option, but we want to encourage you to really connect with a provider who is prescribing and using hormones in a way that is both individualized, but also safe and effective.
I think one common mistake we see a lot is that women are buying progesterone cream online. And if you're taking any kind of estrogen, you need enough progesterone to protect your uterine lining. So estrogen kind of makes the uterine lining grow, like as in our reproductive time, that would help build the lining so that if there was fertilization, the embryo could implant. And then progesterone stabilizes that. So if you take estrogen with an inadequate amount of progesterone, you can end up with uterine lining cancer. And so when people are like, oh, well, my progesterone is this online cream that I bought, and they bring it to me and there's no dosing information, I don't have any confidence that she's treating her uterine lining safely. And really, I feel like she's putting herself at unnecessary risk. So absolutely want you to work with people that are competent, well-trained, and are transparent about what they're recommending and why.
And if the concern is cost, if you're getting hormones from another source because of cost, just know that there are lots of insurance covered, even without insurance, very affordable, FDA-approved hormone options that are molecularly the same structure as the hormones that we have in our bodies and are very safe to use. So again, working with someone who knows all of the options out there and can match you with the right hormone, the right form, and the right product for you is really important.
So thanks so much for listening. This was great. I hope this helped.
A lot of fun.
Folks kind of have some tips on really things they can do on their own to optimize this transition. and maybe avoid some common pitfalls.
Absolutely. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for listening to Menopause Rescue. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and it helps you create some time and space to make this the best half of your life. If you've enjoyed this content, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. This helps other listeners find this resource and rescue and restore their health. If you enjoyed this topic and want to learn more, check out our resource guide for this episode. If today's podcast resonated with you and you want to take a deeper dive, check out my educational resources. We offer basic membership, which is an archive of over 100 videos on menopausal topics ranging from bone health to libido. We add to this archive every month, so the resource becomes richer and richer over time. If you're looking for a menopause expert and live in North Carolina, take our free online class and see if we're a match for your needs. It's called Are We a Good Fit? And is a quick and easy way to learn more about our practice and what it has to offer. Hey, this is Dr. Watson. This is just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for general information purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. No doctor-patient relationship is formed, and any information you get from this podcast is considered educational only. You should make medical decisions with your healthcare provider. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice. Listeners should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition, and they should seek assistance from their healthcare professionals.